On the latest attack in Mosul, we're joined by Raymond Tanter. He was a member of the White House National Security Council during the Reagan-Bush Administration. Welcome back to the show, as always. Is Iraq better off than it was before the U.S. went in and before the death of Saddam Hussein?
No, Iraq is not better off, but it's not the United States' fault. The story behind the story, Elaine, is not the jihadists flowing in from Syria, but lack of political reconciliation among the Kurds, the Iraqi Shia, and the Iraqi Sunni. Every crisis is not just a threat, but is also an opportunity. It's what the Chinese characters indicate. On the threat side, it's clear. That's what the press picks up. But the backstory is the idea of an opportunity for the warring political factions to get together. If it were not for lack of political unity within Iraq, jihadists could not flow in so easily. So the story is about lack of political reconciliation.
Well, what happens now? Because just, several weeks ago, we had the first national elections in that country since 2011. What happens next? What does Nouri al-Maliki need to do to bring this country together?
Nouri al-Maliki has to reach out to the Sunni politicians, one among which is the governor of, is the Speaker of the House of the Parliament in Iraq, the National Assembly, and his brother was the governor of Nineveh province in which Mosul is located. I've been to, right outside of Mosul, to the various cities in Kurdistan, and Kurdistan is bargaining very hard with Maliki about oil revenues, and Maliki is playing a tough line, but he has no leg on which to stand being so tough against the Kurds. He needs the Peshmerga of the Kurds in order to protect Iraqi Arabs in Mosul from the onslaught coming in from Syria.
We saw in Sean's piece, he talked about Mosul and its positioning, the importance of that particular city. What happens next? Could Baghdad fall?
Well, Fallujah fell in January, largest provincial city in Anbar province, in the west also. Mosul. Baghdad is too big to fall. It's like a bank. It will fall in parts. Will Iraq split into three parts? Well, the Latins used to say all Gaul is split into three parts, but I don't think Baghdad would go back into the three parts where it used to be.
What about the regional implications here with the unrest that is taking place currently in Iraq? Talk about how this affects Syria and Libya.
Well, actually, Iran is the key player here. Al-Maliki has asked for the support of all law-abiding forces against the so-called terrorists. And if Iran says, okay, we're going to send you weapons, we're going to take more of a bite out of the jihadists and the Sunnis than was expected, that is a crucial problem. Syria, Assad has been saying the same thing that Maliki is saying now. Everyone who opposes Assad is supposed to be a terrorist. Everyone who's opposed to Maliki is a terrorist. Both are not telling the truth. There are moderate rebels in Syria. There are moderate Sunni Arabs and moderate Kurds in Iraq, and they need to be part of a political compact, and the jihadists would not have a leg on which to stand, Elaine.
So we're seeing the worst violence there that we've seen in years. How do you see this playing out? And do you think that some of these regional neighbors will get involved?
Well, Libya has its own problems. So you ask about Libya. Libya has no way of getting involved. Saudi Arabia and Qatar and others are already involved in Syria, but they are not going to be involved in Iraq. The Arab Gulf states do not like the Maliki government because of the way the Shiite majority has suppressed the Sunni minority. There, about 90% of the Muslims in the world are Sunnis, and all of a sudden, the Shiites of Iraq are acting as if they're the kingmasters.
So what do we see? More violence? How does this violence get reined in?
Well, it gets reined in with politics. You need a political reconciliation.
Are you optimistic about that?
No, I'm not optimistic, but the Kurds have the hammer. They have the oil, they have the Peshmerga, the only militia, if you will, that is able to deliver force. The Iraqi security forces run. They don't run they take off their uniforms and they leave their weapons, they leave their Humvees, and they run into civilian houses to try to get civilian clothes. That's not an army. So the Peshmerga are the key, the Kurds are the key, and I think the Kurds and the Sunni Arabs will get together and force Maliki to do something he doesn't want to do, which may be to step down, and that will solve the problem.
That would be interesting. Raymond Tanter,
You heard it
as
here.
always, we heard it here first. Thank you so much for your time.
Pleasure.